Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And, of course, you good old boys called the Big C Tribe out in Africa. Thank you for following Big C Sports. I hear even Cleopatra listened to the Big C Sports show back in the day, Big C. I want to thank my good old friends from down south in Latin America and also up north in Canada. You know we love you in Canada, but Big C, there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, first of all, I need to get a little advice from you. What day of the week is it?
I think it's Friday. Happy Friday, Big C.
Hey, get ready for some football. That's so getting ready for down here right now.
Oh yeah, you guys are getting ready for football. I hear there's a shortage of moonshine. There's also there's no shortage of beef because they stopped that beef export from out of California. But there might be a shortage of common sense going on. We'll talk about that in the world of sports and all the athletic directors that think they're going to give someone who doesn't win the big game $75 million. I do want to say today is a beautiful December the 1st, 2017. It's called the Christmas season, so I hope a lot of you good old boys went out and bought all your gifts for the holiday season. Big C, let me ask you, in the world of sports, we know we have a lot of things to touch on from college football. We got the Pac-12 championship tipping off tonight down at Levi Stadium and I guess it's Santa Clara. And I always thought they should have played that game at a home site. Maybe they'll call Stanford the home site. We have the big games down south that are tipping off against. You have the good boys from Auburn and Georgia. Up north, we have Wisconsin, Ohio State. Big C, which game are you more looking forward to this week? Your thoughts, Big C.
I tell you, ironically, the most interesting game to me is the Clemson-Miami game.
Oh, yeah.
Clemson's number one in the country. Miami's number 7.
Yep.
You know, this is Clemson's been to the title game 2 consecutive years. Will they make it a trifecta?
Wow.
They'd be the first team in this, origin to go, Charlton.
Yeah.
You got on the outside looking in, you got Ohio State playing Wisconsin.
Yep.
Hoping that if they can knock off Wisconsin with 2 losses, that would catapult them past Wisconsin and into the big game.
Yeah.
Everybody in Alabama's going to be in church tonight.
Praying.
Praying that, Auburn can knock off Georgia.
Yeah.
Because one of those teams will fall out, Charlton. And then you look at Oklahoma City and TCU. I mean, this is, ironically, Charlton, this is the first time in the history of the playoffs that the final 4 teams going into the final week can all lose. Realistically, they can all lose.
Oh, man, goodness.
I know at least 2 of the teams will lose, Charlton.
Yeah.
All 4, I don't think so, but at least 2 of them will fall. Alabama will find a way to get in.
Well, you know what? I think it would be, and it's funny that you mentioned that because just looking at the teams that are playing in again, the ranking is going to be decided based on what happens this weekend. But when they start selecting these teams, even if all 4 were to win, I would not be surprised if some shenanigans go on to knock one of them out because you have Oklahoma at number 2, depending on what poll. Auburn number 4.
All 4 can't win, Charlton, because you got Auburn versus Georgia.
Yeah, so somebody's.
All 4 can't win right off the bat. One of these teams is out and Alabama's in. That's the reason why they're at number 5.
Yeah,
so the date was already been set for Alabama to be into the series. So.
Yeah, well, Big C, I'm only going to ask you who you know that had Alabama drop to number 5. But I think that's what all that praying. So praying works. Is that what we're finding out in the Big C show? We should all go pray that our teams get moved to number 5 after a loss, Big C?
Well, you think about it. Miami lost.
Yep.
Okay, they went from 2 to 7.
Yeah.
Alabama lost. They went from 1 to 5. How does one team move 6 positions?
Yeah.
And one team only moved 4 positions?
Yeah.
And you can't say that Alabama's loss was more convincing from Alabama's loss perspective than what Miami's were.
Yeah.
They were both dismantled by their opponents who were really nobody, something when you look at it in the grander scheme of things.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, Auburn, was a higher-ranked team. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Auburn had 2 losses. Auburn was an SEC opponent.
Yeah.
They had 2 losses.
Yeah.
Auburn, they had 2 losses, regardless of how you slice it.
Yeah.
And they catapult all the way up to number 2, Joe.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up because I want to touch on a few things in the world of college football, because we have that good old boy that just got the job. You know, I'm going to try something. I hope I don't offend anybody, but the good old boy's down at Florida State. And I know Bobby Bowden was, to me, like the paragon coach of college football. He was like someone's grandfather, bringing you in to play football at his program. He just had that down-hole, that folksy way of talking. And I don't think he was ever persuaded by anyone to leave Florida State to go elsewhere just for a few more dollars. I'm sure they paid him well, but not as well as they paid that good old boy Jimbo Fisher. And I ask you, for Texas A&M, deep in the heart of Texas, College Station, to give Jimbo Fisher, a good old boy from Florida, $75 million over 10 years, to come to Texas A&M that hasn't won a national championship, I think, since that good old boy from Alabama coached him way back in the day, Bear Bryant.
All Bear Bryant back in the late 50s.
Way back in the late 50s. They have a statue of Bear Bryant, and he hadn't won since the 50s. Jimbo Fisher, his last marquee game, they were blown out by Alabama, which really broke their season down there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I'll never forget how they came to the Rose Bowl on the West Coast, and Oregon put 59 points on them. So you imagine, after giving up 59 points as one of the Final Four teams, you get $75 million from the good old boys for Texas. Big C, how does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Exactly. This is what we talk about. The rich get richer and the players get poor. Ironically, there's not one player that's going to receive any dividends from Jimbo Fisher's $75 million contract at Texas A&M. How do you justify paying a coach $75 million over 10 years? And the people are going to come to Kyle Field regardless of it. They've been coming to their...
Oh, yeah.
Ever since they invoked the 12th man at Texas A&M.
Yep.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
Kyle Field has always been packed. Even with the expansion under the coaching of Kevin Sumlin.
Yeah.
Kyle Field was packed.
Yep.
So, I'm hard-pressed to find out how Jimbo Fisher is going to squeeze more than 102,000 people into Kyle Field to justify his salary.
Well,
now, we've already talked about the power echelon of the SEC.
Yeah.
But there's 4 teams, period, that's the power echelon every year.
Yeah.
That's Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, that's there.
Yeah.
And LSU.
Yeah.
Under Summit, A&M had squeaked into that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Florida's been down this year. So you really have 7 teams, Charlton,
Yep.
that you really look at in the SEC, a conference of 16 teams, okay?
Yeah.
2 of the teams automatically are going to keep everybody else from competing for a national title. That's Alabama and Georgia right now because they basically have the same blueprint.
Yeah.
Auburn, rebounded this year and became competitive when they got a quarterback.
Yeah.
But when you think about, okay, how far can Jimbo Fisher bring this program? We saw Les Miles lose his job winning only 8 and 9 games a year.
Yep.
We saw Kevin Sumlin doing the same thing at A&M.
Yeah.
He had games, so that's not enough.
Right.
So how much latitude does Jimbo Fisher get with his $75 million contract? How many 7 and 8 win seasons can they withstand? Now, you got to look at his past couple of years at Florida State, Charlton, which haven't been all that productive.
No.
He has not really won any significant games.
No.
And when he looked at the landscape of Florida, Charlton, he had to look at this. Okay, we got Davis down here.
Yep.
Coaching.
Yep.
We got Kisser down here coaching. We got Strong down here coaching. We got Frost down here coaching. All those 4 programs are relevant.
Yep.
The 2 most irrelevant programs, and even you got your guy down there in Miami.
Yep.
Rick.
Yeah.
So there's 5 programs that are relevant in Florida.
Yeah.
The 2 irrelevant programs in Florida were Florida State and the University of Florida.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Both of them now without a coach.
Yeah.
And these are the 2 most storied programs in the state. So people are looking around and say, hey, why does nobody want to be at those schools anymore? The landscape has changed in college football, Charlton.
Yeah.
The big names don't win you big games anymore.
Yeah, and I just want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Big C sent you. When I look at the coaching carousel, and I look at Kirby Smart at Georgia, if they win the national championship, he gets an extra $925,000. Okay, if they win it, $925,000. If they play in it, he gets $525,000. if one of those kids that are going to be, going up against the opponent on the field for 60 minutes, that are going to either win or lose a game, how much money do the kids get? Zero. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. They get nothing. They may get a hat and a trophy that they all got to share. So when you tell these kids you can't eat, you can't work, you can't take a $50 steak dinner from somebody, you cannot go out and get a sweater from one of the boosters, and God forbid if you're hungry, you can't have someone pay your rent because we don't care. We give you enough money not to leave, but enough to stay. But we're going to give the coach that does nothing but yell at you good old boys. If you win one game, $925,000. Big C, maybe it's just me, but when I look at a guy like Gus Malzahn also at Auburn, if they win, he gets a $500,000 paycheck just for winning, not including his salary. The guy that's getting $75 million, he's nowhere in the picture. Jimbo Fisher in the picture for this Final Four, Big C. How crazy is that, or is it just me not understanding the world of college football, Big C?
We're talking the landscape has entirely changed. There is no cap on what you can pay a college coach. I look at these searches that go around for coaches, and we're right now it's like going to a recycling center.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Who do you want to pull out of it?
Yeah.
Because you're not hiring anybody who has a recent national championship. That's the thing you have to look at.
No.
Jimbo Fisher has one on his resume, but it's not recent.
No.
Okay?
No.
And Jameis Winston's not coming back to Florida State.
No, he's not.
So when you look at what a guy has done, there's a reason why they leave, because they feel they no longer have a competitive edge where they win.
Well, Big C,
they're leaving a place where they don't feel that they have a competitive edge, Charlie.
Yeah.
How are they going to create a competitive edge when they go to one of the lower echelon teams in the conference?
That's a very good point. Now, if you know the college football landscape, there's these Power 5 conferences, but there's also these power states. If you look at the state of Florida, they have the best high school football talent in the universe, okay? Especially in the United States. And then number 2 would be California. And then number 3 would be Texas. Number 4, you got to look maybe Ohio, but I would say Georgia's a bit ahead of Ohio. Okay, a lot of those southern states, they just have a better type of athlete. And you can tell that from the high school rankings. And when the teams play, you got schools from California playing schools from Florida for a high school football game because they're trying to find the best competition. If you can't recruit the state of Florida and win there, when all you got to beat is Clemson and maybe Miami this year, but the other years they've been down, and maybe every now and then a Louisville will sneak up there. But like you mentioned earlier, they don't have to beat Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. They don't have to beat someone like even in Arkansas when they have their good years, Florida, LSU. Even South Carolina's come on strong, and then you have a tough non-conference game. Jimbo Fisher couldn't even do that. They're hiring a guy who couldn't even get his team into a bowl game and making him. I thought it was Nick Saban that signed that contract. I think those good old boys in Texas have been drinking too much of that shine. Big, to your thoughts?
Well, they probably wear a meat coma down. They probably just got through the power stuff about
Yeah.
but and I'm not mad at Jimbo Fisher for
No, not at all.
They say a fool and his money is soon falling.
Yeah.
But, to justify to everybody else on the faculty, Texas A&M is a state university, so now he becomes the highest paid state employee in Texas.
Yeah.
When you look at it,
Yeah.
the highest paid state employee in Texas.
Yeah.
He passed up Mark Herman. Mark Herman had become the highest paid employee last year with $4.5 million from UT.
Wow.
And we saw what that brought UT. I think they were $6 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, he made $900,000 a win.
Yeah.
When you realistically look at it.
Yeah.
So, that's not a bad payday. That's like winning the national championship. Each victory, you got $900,000 for it.
Yeah.
But when you look at the landscape and say, okay, I want to compare college football to pro football.
Yeah.
For a moment here.
Yeah.
When they talk about recycling coaches, moving one coach from one university to another, he has to start anew because he has to bring in his whole regime and everything.
Yep.
Assistant coaches. He's got to establish a different climate with the players that are there.
Yeah.
Are they going to be receptive to him because they were, led to believe this other coach was going to be with them
forever?
For a scholarship.
Yeah.
The top 3 teams, the top 3 records in the NFL this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Who are they?
You got New England. You got
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, yeah.
You got the Rams.
In New England.
Vikings,
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Let's omit the
Patriots.
because they don't even count the NFL. They're
Right.
out there, okay?
Yeah.
but row.
Yeah.
And you look at how it's paid off over the past couple years. Denver's had the Vikings on the top of their division for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Last year, injuries knocked them out. Where are the Eagles, the top record in the NFL this year? Peterson has never been a head coach.
Yeah.
And then you look at the Rams with McVay. He has never been a coach, so he was a coordinator.
Yeah.
That's all he was.
Yeah.
And hanging around a couple of years ago, he's being an assistant to a coordinator.
Yeah.
But they brought that new, fresh mentality, that new, fresh life
Yeah.
into those organizations.
Yeah.
Well, they saw things from a player's perspective, Charlton, because they had not been so tarnished in this old-fashionable way.
Yeah.
And that's what you have now. You bring Jimbo Fisher to A&M, you bring that Florida State mentality.
Yeah.
That's all you got. It's like, okay, this is how we did it in Florida State.
Yeah.
Well, you have a different type of athlete at A&M than what you had in Florida State.
Yeah.
You have a different culture. You know, even though you're in the South, it's a different culture
Yeah.
between Texas and Florida.
Yeah.
Florida's way more laid back.
Yeah.
He's going to go in there and some of them boys are, you know, not going to be patient.
No, I understand. Yeah.
And when you promise us more than this for all the bad money we give you,
Yeah.
it's a win.
And you know, ironically, this gentleman, I think he signed an extension last year to stay at Florida State that went to 2024. And, of course, you can take the money. But I just think it's a shame when they go after all the black athletes. Imagine what they're going to be doing after the football season. They're going to go to most black households because that's where the top athletes happen to live over the last 40 years. And they're going to talk to these parents about, let your son come to my school. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to teach him how to grow up. I'm going to give him a chance to compete, earn a great college education, and I'm going to be there for him. And they're going to say, wait a minute, didn't you say that to the same parents that let you recruit their kids to Florida State? What do you say to those people? At the end of the day, you got to be honest and say, you guys, I'm here to recruit your kids because I'm making $75 million to make sure your son has double days when 100-degree heat and plays as great as he can to help me get more money. And he gets education great, but they didn't give me the $75 million to make sure your boy gets an education. They gave me $75 million to make sure I can at least win the SEC or get to a national championship. Big C, that's the conversation they got to have. I just want to finish up on a few more things. Nick Saban, if he gets to the national championship and wins, $310,000. That's chump change for Nick Saban. If he gets to just into the playoff game itself, he gets $210,000. Go down to Oklahoma. Them good old boys and the Oklahoma, they have a $250,000 for Lincoln Riley if he wins the national championship. Only $100,000 if he gets in. Paul Chryst out of Wisconsin, that good old boy, he's not even on the charts. He doesn't make a lot of money compared to all these other great guys, even though I think Wisconsin will get knocked off this week because the Big Ten would do better with Ohio State representing their conference as opposed to having Wisconsin. Last question I want to ask you about this before I touch on Stanford USC. If you're at Florida State now, and you have some of the top athletes, and they went to that game against Alabama down in Atlanta, what do you say to these players that just got left behind by the coach that said that he loved them so much he signed to be with them until 2024, Big C? What do they say to those guys?
Well, Charlton, there's not much to say other than we're going to get you another coach, but I think the NCAA needs to rewrite its rule book.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly think. When a coach leaves a program, that should leave an open door for a player to transfer without penalty, Charlton.
I agree.
And because a coach can leave a program and coach immediately.
Yeah.
But a player cannot leave a program without sitting out for a year.
Yeah.
The NCAA needs to relook at its guidelines, and I don't care whether it's basketball or football, because a coach can go to greener pastures. Well, you know, I was only making $5,000 a year in Florida State.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be making $7.5 million a year at A&M. And both states, I don't pay any state taxes, so it's a true range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a player, you have to stay behind. The coach that comes in, you may not fit his needs, so as far as the scheme that he wants to run offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
And he's going to go out and recruit some players that he wants to come in, Charlton, also.
Yeah.
So now you're going to be competing. Say you're a senior next year.
Yeah.
And he brings in a bunch of players that he wants to establish something. He has to get his program underway. And so a lot of seniors don't get a chance to play when you bring in new coaches, Charlton. A lot of freshmen and sophomores play because he knows he's going to have them for 2 to 3 years at least under his regime.
Yeah,
I think the NCAA is wrong. I mean, they've been raping intelligent players for years, Charlton. No pun intended.
Yep.
They have been doing that to players. The extortion of players in college athletics has never stopped. But now it's gotten to an all-time high. The should allow coaches to leave anytime they want, day and night, sneak out of town. It doesn't make any difference. Have the movie van outside the stadium for the last game.
Yeah.
And you can say, he can go.
Yeah.
But the players, oh no, you belong to us. We talked about this slave mentality, Joe.
Yep.
The players are still the property of the university. Think about it. They are still the property of the university. They are not free to go on their own volition and seek out an education or athletic endeavors elsewhere.
Well, yeah.
Truly, they're slaves of the institution.
Yeah, and I think the next nail to drop on this whole, you would have to realize it's just total exploitation, primarily since they've allowed integration into college sports. You've had all of the top 25 programs that seem to be there, which as you call the heritage schools. Almost all of them have an athletic budget of $100 million for the college football and basketball. You can even toss in some baseball and track and field. But there are programs that hit $100 million on their own, just on the black athlete bringing in that money, even though it's free labor, just like in the antebellum, it's free labor. Just like in the days of slavery, it's free labor. And don't give me this garbage about the getting education. How you get education when you're doing double days and on the road 3 or 4 times a week, and you got to play some of the top talent in the country? Doesn't make any sense, Big C. I want to bring you out to the West Coast. We have the Pac-12 championship game. This game is being played down at Santa Clara at Levi Stadium, home of the 49ers, and we have the University of Southern California Trojans. They're playing the Stanford Cardinal. Now, the Trojans, depending on what poll you look at, they're ranked number 9 or 10 in the country. And then Stanford is right in the top 20. Now, if you look at Stanford, they've been in the Pac-12 championship representing the North. I think this is the 4th year out of 7 years. 4 out of 7. USC, this is the 2nd year that they've been there back-to-back. And the Trojans are favored by 4 in this game. And I remember going into the season, they had this Heisman Trophy candidate that was looking at setting on all the records, Sam Darnold, out of USC. And now you have Stanford. Think about it. McCaffrey left last year, was up for the Heisman Trophy, and now Love comes in, and he's one of the Heisman Trophy candidates, but he couldn't even start over McCaffrey, Big C. How well is David Shaw recruited at Stanford?
Well, something you never know what you have until you lost something. And with McCaffrey, with all his hype, and he was a tremendous college player. He took second fiddle for nobody.
Yep.
You think about the records that he set while he was there at Stanford.
Yeah.
But this kid, Bryce Love, was biting at the bit and training for an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And he is not disappointed since day one. Matter of fact, no one even mentioned McCaffrey's name throughout the season.
No.
With Love playing. That's how well this man expanded his game on the field. So.
Yeah.
And that's what college athletics is about, opportunity, Calvin.
Yeah.
Not to be shackled, but, the depth on rosters now in college football is just tremendous. You go 3-4 deep in some positions
Yeah.
as far as the talent level. The worst thing for a player these days in college football, Calvin, is to get hurt.
Yeah.
It's because you may never play again. In
Yeah.
that season, you may never play again. That's what that red shirt comes out about.
Yep.
But, it's been a tremendous year for Mr. Love out there in Stanford. All the praise to him.
Yeah.
For the rushing yards that he's accumulated. And it's been a disappointing and up and down year for Donald on the flip side of that seat.
Yeah.
A guy that's surrounded by a wealth of talent, Calvin, in every position on offense, has just not delivered.
Yeah.
He's a little skittish at quarterback. He gets happy feet. He doesn't always use his progression.
No.
He's quick to use his legs, what you call a black quarterback.
Yeah.
But he's right.
Yeah.
They say he has a hard time with going through his read progression.
Yeah.
And I think about the criticism that he doesn't get because of that.
Yeah. That's true.
If he was Lamar Jackson or Kelly Bryant,
Yeah.
and Clemson, or even Barrett at Ohio State,
Yeah.
He's just not steady in the pocket. We
Yeah.
heard that a lot about Deshaun Watson. Well, he's not steady in the pocket. He's too apt to want to use his legs.
Yeah.
When he extended plays.
Yeah.
That's using his legs to throw interceptions.
That's a very good point.
If you want to make him uneasy and get him to make turnovers,
Yeah.
get him to move out of the pocket, Joe.
That's a good point. Also, Saturday, number 14, Memphis 10-1 at number 11, Central Florida at 11-0, and that's on the grass stadium. ABC Sports has it. UCF's favored by 7 in that game. Should be a good contest. I look at Oklahoma, ranked number 2, 11-1 versus number 12 TCU, 10-2 in Arlington, Texas. A 12:30 kickoff on Fox Sports. Oklahoma's favored by 7, and I know they got the win the first time, but the TCU defense, they always say defense wins championships. If they have a way to adjust to what they did last time. It's hard to beat the same team back-to-back in the same season. Just give me your thoughts on what we can expect for Oklahoma and TCU. Will the Sooners roll over the Horned Frogs, turn the tide? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's not so much about the Horned Frogs defense. It's all about King and quarterback for the Horned Frogs. He has to have a stellar game on offense. You know, he has to have a game like his initial game in college football when he quarterbacked Texas A&M and set the single-season passing record for them with over 500 yards against South Carolina.
Wow.
I don't think he'll pass for 500 yards, but he needs to be in that 400-yard category if they expect to beat Oklahoma. He has the ability, but will he have the patience and stay in the pocket to get that done? We know what Mayfield is capable of doing with his legs as well as with his arms at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And his cockiness always elevates his game. He goes into a game with a chip on his shoulder, and he still has a chip on his shoulder from being benched a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
So I expect him to come out and play lights out. I look at the spread. This game will be covered by the spread. I see Oklahoma winning this game against TCU.
The big game down south, you good old boys. We have number 4 Auburn 10-2 versus number 6 Georgia 11-1 in Atlanta. And I hear they run out of hot dogs in Atlanta. Who eats hot dogs in Atlanta? Don't they know they like a chicken and deep fried steak down in Atlanta? He's missing. I told you a friend of mine, some knuckleheads brought their pit bull over, and this dumb guy put the pit bull in the chicken pen. That pit bull ate all the chickens. That bulldog, that chicken, that war eagle might be looking pretty good at that bulldog down south. Is that what you're saying?
You think about Georgia, they're still reeling from that loss when they were number 1 team in the country to Auburn.
Yeah.
And if they were dominated by Auburn, it wasn't an easy win. It was just a lopsided win.
Yeah.
But Auburn has had something you and I talked about weeks ago that everybody else doesn't have in the SEC since Johnny Manziel's Heisman Trophy winner year.
Yeah.
Is that you had a consistent quarterback that could throw the ball, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that every teams are not used to facing. Is a team that can come out with a quarterback that can throw for 250 to 300 yards a game. If you look at Kelly 2 years ago at the University of Mississippi, when he heated up the SEC throwing the ball, that's what made Mississippi relevant.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those conferences, Charlton, where they like to keep the ball on the ground and grind it out. Big physical teams. You've seen that over the years. LSU could never find a quarterback, but they always had a winning team.
Yeah.
Because they could just grind it out with tremendous athletes on offense and defense.
Yeah.
Rick Cinnamon is the X factor in this game, Charlton, for the University of Auburn. So Georgia is playing a true freshman at quarterback. Toss for toss. They can't compete. They were able to shut down Georgia's running game with Stubbs and Murray. Auburn has a solid running game. The back got a little bit missed in that last game against Alabama. A lot of it is going to be relevant to his health, Charlton. Can he go out and put in the full 60 minutes and carry the mail? We know what Center can do, but he's going to need the support of that run game for Auburn.
That's a good point, Big C. The game's 4:00 p.m. on CBS Sports. Artificial turf. And Auburn's favored by 2.5 in this game. And I want to just toss on another game. Fresno State 9-3 at Boise State 9-3. The Mountain West Conference Championship. 7:45 kickoff on ESPN. It's on artificial turf. Boise's favored by 9.5. But the Bulldogs just beat them by double digits last week in Fresno. Your thoughts on the return of Jeff Tedford and how he took a 1-9 Fresno State football team and got them back to the Mountain West Championship after 1 year, Big C. 1 year he did that, and he did not get $75 million, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we're talking that this is a game that truly played on frozen pond, I guess you could say, with the Blue I'm very impressed with what Coach Tedford has done out there at Fresno State, Charlton. This is a young man who has been at Cal. He's at Cal, the Promise, had Marshawn Lynch as a star player there, as many other great defensive players that he sent along to the NFL. He even had a #1 draft pick quarterback who was drafted by the Raiders. Some time ago. But, Jeff Tedford has always been an offensive mind. He was a quarterback for Jim Sweeney there at Fresno State. He was offensive coordinator down with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers until he had some medical conditions, and he had to retire. But he got his health back, and he went back to his alma mater. And he picked up the stride where he played under, I believe it was Jim Sweeney.
Jim Sweeney.
Coach. And, he has his team playing with that bulldog mentality, tenacity. It's going to be a challenging night, though, Chauncey, going up to Boise where it can get cold.
Yeah, it can get cold.
From California, not used to it. I agree with the statement here that the boys are home, frozen blue turf. I don't think the Bulldogs are going to be able to go up there and make mashed potatoes, Chauncey.
Well, we'll find out what happens in that game. Congratulations, Jeff Terry, Fresno State, and Boise. I look at number 1, Clemson, 11-1 versus number 7, Miami, Florida. That turnover train, they're 10-1 on the season. That game's played in Charlotte. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on ABC Sports on a grass surface, and Clemson's favored by 9. Now, I know Clemson has won, they won 11 games this year, but a lot of the games have not been blowouts. And now, can they somehow summon the same type of energy that they summoned when they played them good old boys from South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame, and beat them 40-7? Because Miami has the athletes, but do they have that extra energy that players need some time to get over the hump? Big C, your thoughts?
I think this advantage goes to Clemson in this game because this is a home game basically for Clemson.
Yeah.
When you think about playing in Carolina.
Yeah.
And Clemson's another one of those programs, something when we talk about recycling coaches.
Yep.
Dabney Sweeney was a coordinator when he got the head job at Clemson, and we've seen how productive he's been since he's been the head coach at Clemson. They didn't recycle when they went to look for a coach. They hired someone there that was a coordinator, and Dabney Sweeney has been nothing but success in taking over. That's what other programs need to look at. Stop going out spending all this money since the guy was in and let him grow with the program.
Yeah.
Florida State, this is the same scenario that you just talked about Fresno State. They're going from this warm, hot weather down there in the coast of Florida into this freezing, and most likely will be in the mid-40s, if not lower, in Carolina. That affects players mentally. Trust me, when you got these warm weather players, and you look at it around the country, teams that play in warm climates do not like to play late in the season.
No.
In cold climates. What happened to Miami a couple weeks ago when they went to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, play bad, yeah.
It was cold.
Yeah.
They couldn't respond to that stuff, and I see them with the same scenario going up playing in this ACC championship game. They're going into a cold climate, Charlie.
Yeah.
That has to affect the mentality of players who are not used to being in there.
Yep.
When you get cold, you can't warm up. And I see that happening to Miami and Clemson dominating this game.
Well, Big C, Ohio State, they had J.T. Barrett, who has over 100 touchdown passes for the Buckeyes in his career, had arthroscopic knee surgery on Sunday. According to reports, Urban Meyer said he will play Saturday in the Big Ten championship game versus Wisconsin. Now, I know we want to talk about putting the health of athletes first, but I think there's a lot of money on the line to kind of say, hey, he's healthy enough. So what, he had surgery on Sunday? He's healthy enough to play because we need this money. I look at this game, number 3, Wisconsin, 12-0, the only undefeated in the Final Four so far, and Ohio State, a traditional power. I think about the days of Woody Hayes when they could just run the ball down your throat. Ranked number 7. They're 10-2 on the season. That game is played inside at Indianapolis on Fox Sports, 8 o'clock kickoff. And Ohio State's favored by 6.5 over the only undefeated team in the tournament. Now, we talked about the surgery on Sunday, playing on Saturday. I want to get your thoughts. Is that a smart thing, Big C, and your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
This something I can guarantee he spent the week in a hyperbaric chamber, okay?
Yeah.
To keep the swelling and inflammation down in that knee.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a good move. This shows the lack of class and character of the university and the athletic program, and even Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
Regardless of this young man's desire to play, first and foremost, we talked about it earlier in the program, you're going to be a father figure for a young man, okay?
Yep.
He's not getting paid for this.
No, he's not? Hold on, breaking news. Hold on, Big C. Did you say, who got the $75 million? I thought it was going to J.T. Barrett for playing. It's not him? Is that what you're saying, Big C?
Urban Meyer, no father, Urban Meyer, $7.5 million contract.
Wow.
Will be going to J.T. Barrett for this thing.
Wow.
But if J.T. Barrett goes out and wins this game for Urban Meyer, Urban Meyer gets a $500,000 bonus.
Yeah.
That's what's on Urban Meyer's mind.
Yeah.
J.T. Barrett goes out and re-injures his knee. He's like, oh, well, we really appreciate you. We're going to put you in Ohio State Hall of Fame. That's all that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But this is where the lack of institutional control, they talk about it in academics.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is lack of institutional control when you jeopardize the health, the long-term health of an athlete. And I'll tell you something, there was a time in my career, we played a game on a Sunday. I was that Monday morning.
Yeah.
I played again following.
That following week is the following week, yeah. It's the same thing, Big C. I know there's something called this CTE protocol. If you have the issue, they're going to have you sit out a week. It's a shame you have a college player who's playing for free, allegedly. No money on the line for him, but they want to put him in this I guess a Fox house to see if he can help Ohio State get to a championship playoff system. And I think money is trumping the kid's health, but I'm just someone on the outside looking in. I do want to say there's a good old boy from a movie called, I think it's called Scarface, Tony Montana. Remember that Tony Montana met with that banker. They were bringing money into these banks, hand over fist, and gunny sacks, Big C, okay? And that banker said, we got to go up on your fees because it's hard to wash this money. And he said, hey, forget that. I'm going to take my money to Colombia. And he said, come on, Tony, you're going to trust your money with those Colombian bankers. Don't you trust them more with the good old boys here in the United States? And he said, you know what? Manolo said, you know what, Tony, he has a point, man. So he let the American money steal from him as opposed to Colombian banks. Big C, is that what they're doing in college football, stealing money from the players? Big C, your thoughts? So, Big C, does that make any sense what we're saying? That in the Scarface story, they knew they were stealing money. And he said, we can at least make sure your money doesn't get stolen from you. Is that how college football is treating these athletes when they brag about $75 million for a coach that's not even in the playoff run? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at college athletics and you look at pro athletics has an injury report, the NFL.
Yeah.
Only league anybody that has an injury report so the bettors can get their bets right.
Yep.
You think about college football. When a player gets injured in college football,
yep.
He has a career-ending injury. We never hear about
No,
it.
you don't.
He's gone.
No.
If you're back up, you get a career-ending injury, you're gone. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
J.T. Barry, his career is over at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Their next loss.
Yeah.
His career is completely over. They're not concerned about his future. They say, okay, we've gotten 5 years of productivity out of you.
Yeah.
Actually 4.5 because you were hurt 1 year.
Yeah.
So that's all we care about. We're not looking at what happens to you next year.
Yeah.
You're not going to be drafted as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And with this knee injury, won't get drafted at all by anybody, Charles.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Here it is. It all is for him. And it all is for him, Charles, for the help to support Ohio State.
Yeah.
And, they'll sit there and say, Ohio State has done so much for him.
Yeah.
What has Ohio State done for J.T. Barrett that he has not done more for Ohio State with, Charles?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Somebody has to give me that scale and let me balance it out.
Yeah. No, you're right. 100% right, Big C. But we know it's all about the money, and they're going to get it. It's a shame that the guys helping them get it are young black men. I'm just saying, 70%, you can Google that, maybe more than that at the top schools. You look at who's starting in these Final Fours outside of Wisconsin, and I believe that's one of the reasons they'll be knocked out. The majority of the players on these teams trying to get their coaches a $100 million or a $75 million contract, the young black boys, a lot of them come from socioeconomic backgrounds where their parents don't have $100 million coming in the bank. They're not getting paid $7 million a year, but they're being exploited, okay? And we can say, well, they're getting an education. You're not getting an education. You're getting beaten up. Most of these kids are not getting that, Big C.
Everyone used that saying, they're getting an education. But no university is showing the graduation rate of their college football players.
No.
Show me one university that's showing the graduation rate of their freshman class year after year.
Yeah,
okay?
that's a good point.
That's the one thing that's never put out there, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, whatever.
Yep.
Is this a revenue sport? There's not a university out there, maybe Stanford, Chalk, and
Yeah.
I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Chalk. He graduates from, okay?
Yeah, they graduate.
When we look at these power conferences, Chalk, 90% of the teams will never give you a graduation ratio.
No.
Because they can't produce one.
Yeah, and even if they do, pay the people, sometimes they got to listen to Eric Dixon, pay me. And I just think the kids have no power. It's almost like the sexual assault issues we're dealing with. Guys like Matt Lauer locking doors on women once they come inside of your office. Locking the door on a woman so she can't get out so you can exercise your power. And some people having all kind of issues with that. And they're doing the same thing to young kids on the athletic fields. And most of these coaches are Caucasian. You can Google that too. But most of the talent that's making the money are black men. And you can Google that.
Last year with Nick Saban.
Yeah.
When he back named Smith wants to transfer back to his home state of Georgia.
Yeah.
Nick Saban denied him the ability to transfer to Georgia. He wasn't going to play at Alabama.
Yeah.
He was a fifth-year senior.
Yeah.
He wanted to transfer and play for Kirby Smart in Georgia. control.
Yeah, that's control.
The individual's life. They said, no, I'm not going to play you, and I'm going to tell you where you can't play at.
Yeah, and
what does the NCAA do about this?
Nothing.
This is what I said earlier. The NCAA, when a college coach leaves, every player on that roster should have the ability to leave without penalties, be able to play immediately at whichever school he chooses to transfer to, Charles.
Yep.
That's where the NCAA is wrong. This is why you and I have talked about slavery.
Yeah.
Institutionalized slavery. That we own you.
Yeah.
You sign this deal with us, we own you for the next 4 to 5 years, and you can only go if we let you go. You just can't leave voluntarily.
Yeah, that's a good point, Big C. So we know we've got to change it. It's an antitrust violation. Hopefully there'll be some lawyers that will press the issue on this while we're dealing with sexual assault and we're dealing with criminal justice reform. Deal with the antitrust violation of these programs, saying who's going to be next to make $100 million? Who's going to get there? Is it going to be Alabama? Is it going to be Clemson? How about the next program? Will it be Oklahoma or will it be Auburn or USC? How about give the kids some money? Big C, I want to say sports is a $1 billion industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this $1 billion industry. And when you play athletic events, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around a half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. Reach out to them, and when you do, let them know that Big C sent you. Big C in the world of the NFL, and we'll run down the NFL the next half of our program. I look at the Cowboys last night with a 38-14 beatdown of the Washington Redskins. I know the Redskins had some passes dropped, but the Cowboys go to 6-6. The Redskins drop to 5-7. One quarterback makes $100 million. The other one doesn't make the $100 million. But Dak Prescott got the win. But I think more important than the win is the fact that Jerry Jones, for the first time this year, turned his attention from suing everybody and put it on his team. Now, from what I understand, if you're an owner of a team, they tend to follow what the owner's doing. So if your attention's on leaving or your attention's on suing somebody, then you're not focused on winning because the ownership's not in the same concept with you. The same thing's happening to the Oakland Raiders. They're talking about going to Las Vegas. How can they focus on winning when they're thinking, how am I going to replace my family's location and take my kids out of school and buy a new house and all that garbage? That's also on their minds, too. Big C, your thoughts on the Cowboys beat down to the Redskins last night? He's not my cousin. He's spreading those rumors, man. Okay.
You got the TV people talking, but they have less listeners than radio do.
Yep.
Saying that he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL.
And what?
The last 2 years, that's all he has is 10 victories. So
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yeah. That's called inverted math. Inverted math, Big C. Yeah, fake news. Yeah, that's that good old boy Trump.
Everybody rides Andy Dalton with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hard pressed to find where your cousin plays.
That's how rumors get started. He's not my cousin.
I look at him. I look at the Redskins and the Bengals. Nobody's talking about firing Gruden.
No.
But everybody's talking about firing Lewis.
Yeah.
Marvin Lewis.
Yeah.
But nobody's talking about firing Gruden. And he's got the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
But nobody's talking about firing him.
No,
so
that's...
What's the problem? Well, they say, well, this guy's hurt, that guy's... Everybody's hurt in the league this time.
Oh, yeah.
Year, okay?
Yeah.
Even... you get hurt getting out of bed. I've been hurt all day long.
It's hard to lift a gallon of moonshine every hour, Big C. They don't understand how tough it is being rich and successful when you're in the South, Big C. I do want to... Your good old boy, Des Bryant, 72nd touchdown pass. I think he tied... Did he tie the great Bob Hayes, Big C? Had a good game last night.
He tied Bob Hayes, once the fastest man in the world, was the 1964 Tokyo Olympics champion, gold medal 100-yard winner. And Bob Hayes, he's now in the NFL Hall of Fame. He was elected by the Veterans Committee to get there, Charles. But when he retired from football, this is what we talked about in ostracizing the black athlete.
Yeah.
It took him 20 years after retirement to get into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And he was the Dallas Cowboys all-time leader in yards, receptions, and touchdowns.
Yeah.
And you wonder, what does the selection committee look at from time to time? Because there were players in the Hall of Fame with less numbers than what Bob Hayes had. And he was also a Super Bowl winner, Charles.
Yeah.
So he had all the credentials and accolades as a player, all pro.
Yep.
He had team leader in several categories.
Yep.
Super Bowl winner, and could not get into the Hall of Fame. But, great players for Bears Bryant tying that record last night.
Yep.
And the Dallas Cowboys coming down with the victory.
And then a great game coming up this weekend. The Vikings 9-2 at the Falcons 7-4. That game is Sunday, 1:00 p.m. on Fox. And Kevin Burkhardt, Charles Davis, and the great Pam Oliver have the play-by-play. I look at the Vikings looking for the 7th win in a row. And, you look at the team in the Falcons. They seem to have found the little stride in their step, Big C. They're not playing as inconsistent as they were the first part of the season. They're coming on really strong. Your thoughts on that game being played at the Dome?
We're talking, they got to find a way to incorporate Devontae Freeman back into the lineup. He's been out the last couple of weeks due to concussion protocol. And you look at how the Falcons' offense was playing when Devontae Freeman was in there. Matt Ryan was finding ways to keep the ball out of his hands.
Yeah. Yep.
Devin Coleman touched the ball a lot more than Devontae Freeman did, in the past 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But, this is the game that we saw Julio Jones set the strides last week.
Oh, yeah.
251 yards.
Yep.
But the Vikings have one of the more vaunted defenses in the NFL. Now, we saw the Falcons defense just a couple of weeks ago demolish the Dallas Cowboys offensive line.
Yeah.
Case Keenum in the last 2 games has completed over 70% of his passes.
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot.
He's completed the passes. He's not just a game manager, Charlton. He's a game winner.
Yeah.
Now, it's going to be a big challenge for the speedy Falcons defense. Can they keep up with Case Keenum? Can he give him the ball on time like he's been doing? He has shown nerve of skill, Charlton. He will stand in the pocket,
Yep.
let a receiver get open, and take that hit.
Yeah.
And that's what you need from a leader at quarterback.
Yeah.
So this could be a playoff preview if the Falcons win this game.
Yeah.
If not, the Falcons could be on the outside looking into the playoffs.
Yeah, very, very much an important game in the SEC in the NFC South. I look at the Texans and I look at the Titans. The Texans 4-7 at the Titans 7-4. That game is Sunday, 1:00 kickoff on CBS Sports. The great Greg Gumbel, Trent Green, and Jamie Erdahl have the play-by-play. And the Texans are still not mathematically eliminated, but Tennessee's playing good football. It looks like they're gonna maybe take charge of that division. Big C, your thoughts on that game?
When you think about the Texans, Charlton, they don't have a starting quarterback or a backup quarterback.
Nope.
So, that speaks for itself. Mariota should have a field day against this defense. This defense is not the defense that used to be when J.J. Watt was playing. But you also got to realize when J.J. Watt was playing, this team was only 2 games over 500.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's not like the Texans have ever been a totally dominant team. But now they're a very mediocre team because they have no offensive firepower, Charlton. You have a quarterback in Tom Savage.
Yep.
I think he might be related to Jay Cutler.
Maybe they're cousins. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Big C, the number 3 game, we have the Chiefs 6-5 at the Jets 4-7. Sunday, 1:00 kickoff. CBS Sports, the great Iron Eagle, Dan Fouts, and Evan Washburn with the play-by-play. Kansas City's lost 5 over the last 6 games. What's happened to the big old boys from Kansas City, Big C? Your thoughts?
Yeah, Charlton, everything goes, people get the film on you and figure you out.
Yeah,
okay,
yep.
The Chiefs, got off to a blazing start. No one had seen Kareem Hunt early in the season. They were not used to seeing him. The receivers, Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Finally was in the starting lineup full time at the beginning of the season. Everyone knew what Travis Kelce was, but all of a sudden, they got film on everybody else. They became very predictable offensively.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. They had a couple offensive linemen go down, but at that point, they became very predictable.
Yep.
And by the time those linemen came back, Charlton, they had came back to earth.
Yeah.
The Chiefs don't even believe in their press second.
Yeah.
They can't even score points. The first 5 games,
Yep.
they can't score points again.
Yeah, they're a different team. No, they're a different team. The next game we have coming up Sunday, 1:00 kickoff, CBS Sports. The great Dick Stockton doing the play-by-play with Mark Schlereth and Shannon Spick. And I look at your cousin, Aqib Talib, Pro Bowl cornerback, not being in the game because he's suspended. I guess he thought he's more important than helping the team win a game. And then you look at the Dolphins, who are 4-17, and you think about the Dolphins. They've been outscored 177-82 in the span since they traded Jay Ajayi. Big C, your thoughts on that game coming up?
Well, I'm wondering will they be playing Lynch, the prime quarterback?
Nah, you're wrong. They might.
The field will freeze in Denver, in the winter
Yeah.
time, so you might be in a nice time to be in the game.
Yeah.
But, I look at this scenario with Miami, and this is a lost season for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And Jake Cutler just enhanced that by coming out of retirement.
Oh, yeah.
I would have rather played a rookie quarterback that had never played other than Jake Cutler, let him take his lumps and try to develop.
Yep.
Jake Cutler was, as Jerry said, he is who he thought he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, this Dolphins team, they have a tremendous defense. They just have no offense to support it.
Yeah.
And so you get rid of your top runner. Who runs the ball for you? No one even knows who's running the rock for the Dolphins.
No.
And Denver, this offense is in such disarray. When you got three quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Okay?
Yep.
Now, all you're doing is giving out paychecks for 3 guys.
And those cashing,
You have no quarterback.
and they're cashing those checks. Yeah.
You have no running game. You didn't develop an offensive line. Free agency came and gone. And
Yeah.
you didn't pick up one offensive lineman in free agency of any caliber, Charles.
Yep.
No starters.
That's-
So you left it all on your defense, and you guys go out there and win the game in the NFL without scoring points. This is not the Baltimore Ravens when they won their first Super Bowl with Stuart Belfry.
Yeah. Yeah. Your cousin, obviously.
All you had to do was score 7 points and you won.
That was a great defense back in the day. The Colts 3-8 at the Jaguars 7-4. That game Sunday 1:00 kickoff on CBS Sports. Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon have the play-by-play and loses of 5 of their last 6. The Colts, I'm telling you, they're just all banged up and they're all disjointed. And I don't know. I think the money they gave to Andrew Luck really hasn't panned out. It's kind of like what's going to happen down at Texas A&M, giving Jimbo all that $75 million. But I look at what happened with Jacksonville, 41 sacks, and 10 of those sacks have come against Indianapolis in their first meeting. Big C, your thoughts on the sack team from Jaguars picking up again?
Well, the quarterback that they had Thursday is a backup now where he should have been relegated to before the start of the season.
Yep.
But this is a game that Jacksonville should win handily. The coach auditioning for a new head coach. That's what they're doing. Also,
Yeah.
auditioning for Eli Manning.
Yeah.
Does he want to come down there and play next year? Blake Bortles is just keeps the feet warm.
Yep.
So Eli gets released all the time, and he'll be a Jacksonville Jaguar next year.
That's a very good point.
This is a game where Jacksonville is progressively moving towards the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have any hiccups in Indianapolis. I expect Jacoby Brissett to play well, but his offensive line won't allow him enough protection to win the game, Joe.
Good point, Big C. Buccaneers 4-7 at the Packers, 5-6. That game Sunday, 1:00 kickoff on Fox Sports. Tim Brando, Greg Jennings, and Jennifer Hale with the play-by-play. Ryan Fitzpatrick's 2-1 since replacing Jameis Winston. Big C, your thoughts on that game?
Well, Harley played well last week against Pittsburgh, so they should have won that game.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't put it on the young quarterback last week. You got to look at the Packers defense. They just could not hold the killer bees, from getting their hands on multiple occasions.
Yep.
And that game-winning field goal. But I like what Harley's progression has been. He hasn't played in 3 years. Finally, he's getting an opportunity. He's like any rookie, talking. This is technically his preseason against starters.
Yeah.
And now he's starting to shake off the rust and getting a grasp for the speed of the NFL game. This is a game that I see Green Bay winning. Green Bay wins this game, Charlton, they go to 500 on the season.
Yeah.
2 more games and Aaron Rodgers would be back. If they can win 2 more games prior to Aaron Rodgers returning,
Yeah.
I feel that the Packers will make the playoffs. So
That's a good effort for them to put out forward for that game. Big C, the Lions 6-5 at the Ravens, 6-5 Sunday, 1:00 kickoff on Fox Sports. Tom Brenneman, Chris Spielman, and Peter Shager with the play-by-play. You look at the Lions, Matthew Stafford has Marvin Jones and Golden Tate catching his passes. The Ravens have always been led by defense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at Joe Flacco last week in that pathetic game that they won. Now, they've only won games against teams that are with a less than 500 record,
Yeah.
okay? If
Yeah.
you had a winning record, you can beat the Ravens. Joe Flacco passed last week for a paltry 141
Wow.
yards, Charlton,
Wow.
in that game. A dismal performance by a former Super Bowl winning quarterback in the NFL. 141 yards.
Yeah.
His QBR rating, Charlton, is only 45, 47. That's it in the NFL. That's not even enough. I mean, like I said, Colin Kaepernick got released last year with an 84
Yep.
QBR rating. So it was double what Joe Flacco did. But this this is a game that I see Matthew Stafford, getting over the snide because, they can put some points on the board. The Ravens can't, Charles.
Yeah, that's a good.
I see Detroit dominating this game.
That's a very good point. The Patriots, with the better teams in the history of sports, 9-2 at the Bills, 6-5. Sunday 1:00 kickoff. CBS Sports, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson had the play-by-play. Even though when Tony Romo doing a game, I thought I was watching the replay because he keeps telling me what they're going to do. They got to stop giving him the inside information. I look at the Patriots, just a dominating team, 17th consecutive winning season. I look at the Bills, they got a big win over Kansas City last week. Big C, your thoughts going into this game on Sunday?
My thoughts on Tony Romo is just this. He's telling me what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So he spent how many years quarterbacking the Dallas Cowboys?
At least about 12, I
12
think.
years.
Yeah.
12 years. And he couldn't figure out what the defense was going to do when he was
When he played.
He was a better analyst than he was a quarterback. And
Yeah.
He saw what was going on when he was up above everything because when he was at high level, he couldn't figure it out. So the Dallas Cowboys didn't have that many receivers while he was playing quarterback.
Yeah.
I think he made the right move in going to the booth, Charlton. But this is one of those games that playoff implications once again. They're always putting Romo and Nance from the big game of the week.
Yeah.
And so this is a game that I like the home team in this game, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because, this time of the year, you can't afford to lose at home.
No.
You can't. When you start losing at home, this means you're out of the playoffs in a hurry.
Well, Buffalo's beaten them before, Big C. Out to the Midwest, the Windy City, the 49ers 1-10 at the Bears 3-8. Think about those two great organizations being 1-10 and 3-8 playing. And that Sunday 1:00 kickoff on CBS Sports. Andrew Catalan and James Lofton have the play-by-play. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo. That's been a much ballyhooed player starting this time for the San Francisco 49ers in his home state. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is coming out part of the Jimmy Garoppolo. And what a better team to come out against than the Chicago Bears, Charlton. This is a team that, the first 5 games of the season look like they might have the potential.
Yeah.
But just then, the Bears are the real Bears. We're not going to see the team from the 85.
No. They're not showing up. No.
From the 80s with the 49ers stuff.
Right.
Those days are long gone between these two teams being competitive against each other. This is a game where you're looking for draft position stuff.
Yeah.
That's basically all you're looking at. This is a game that I don't know if this is a good game for Jimmy Garoppolo. The Bears have a better defense than what they have in offense.
Yeah.
And so when you're playing not with the New England Patriots offense, but with the San Francisco 49ers offense, we will see the true Jimmy Garoppolo. That touchdown that he threw last week in the last 65, 70 seconds of the game,
Yeah.
that's really not a calibration for what a guy is.
Yeah, that's
now,
true.
If you go from start to finish in a game, we will see if Jimmy Garoppolo was worth the trade on with their mouth and say, well, it's just his first game starting for the 49ers.
Well, we definitely will find out, Big C. The Browns 0-11. I guess they're still on pace for that parade for going 0-16. They're at the Chargers 5-6, maybe one of the top teams now in all of the AFC. Sunday 4:05 kickoff on CBS Sports. Spiro Dennis and Adam Archuleta have the play-by-play. When you think about it, the Browns' one win last season on Christmas Eve came at home versus the Chargers, Big C. Do they have a chance to repeat that in Carson, California? Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Philip Rivers for his last 2 games has passed for well over 850 yards. Okay?
Yeah.
He's on a heater right now. Right now, I couldn't tell whether it was him or Clayton Kershaw throwing the ball.
Yeah.
He's untouchable.
Yeah.
Philip Rivers is savvy. He knows that the clock is ticking.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he might be playing with an edge this week, talking after Eli Manning being benched. Philip Rivers right now has the longest starting streak of quarterbacks in the NFL. But, he was part of that trade for Eli Manning 13 years ago. They were swapped by teams.
Yep.
Those 2 players. But Philip Rivers knows that his window of making the playoffs is really short. They didn't make it last year. Right now, they're the best playing team in the AFC West. And so if he can keep this team rolling, they will make the playoffs and possibly win the division.
Well, they look very good, basically. The Giants, with all of their turmoil, 2-9, at the Raiders 5-6, 2 marquee programs, just don't have a lot of energy going for them. I know the Raiders, they have their issues with not having their, Amari Cooper's out with concussion. Michael Crabtree, he tried to join MMA fighting last week against, the good old boy Keep to Lead, and so they decided to watch it on the sidelines. That Sunday 4:25 kickoff, on Fox Sports. Kenny Albert and Rondé Barber and Christina Pink had the play-by-play. A lot of things happening with the Giants coming in, putting Eli Manning on the bench before they come across the country, and then the Raiders not having two of their marquee receivers. Big C, your thoughts on that game?
I heard the week past the game, so many broadcasters wishing bad luck on a quarterback such as Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Praying for him to lose. I've heard nothing but negativity from all the sports outlets about Geno Smith. He's in the NFL. Now, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks play worse than Geno Smith, and they have starting jobs in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know, I would try to say that Geno Smith is better than Savage in Houston.
Yeah.
And several other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But Geno Smith, because he's in New York, and Eli Manning has to be put on the bench for Geno Smith.
Yep.
It's a sin.
Yeah.
You know, he has an opportunity to come out and play well. And I hope that he plays well, Charlton, for the mere fact is that he's an NFL player.
Yeah.
And this is a union. This is a fellowship of players, Charlton, that are all in the same union fighting for the same thing.
Yeah.
They're fighting for a livelihood and they're fighting for wins. And if either one player is more deserving of it than another player, especially when that player, Charlton, in the last 5 years has done nothing but gone down.
Yeah.
If you look at Eli's QBR rating 5 years ago, okay?
Yep.
It was around 80% as a QBR rating. Right now, Eli's QBR rating is under 40. And you're saying that, you know, you're not improving by giving somebody else a chance, Charlton?
Yeah.
And Eli is there on the steady decline. I can see if Eli was out there winning. The only winning season he's had in the last 5 years, Charlton, was last year.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's the only winning season he's had in the last 5 years. So it's not like Eli has been setting New York on fire.
No, not at all. And think about it. On Thanksgiving against Washington, and New York managed 170 yards, and they extended their streak without an offensive touchdown to 6 quarters, okay? That's the guy they put on the bench. I want to look at a great game coming up in the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers 8-3 at the New Orleans Saints 8-3, and that game is Sunday at 4:25 kickoff on Fox Sports. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, and Aaron Andrews have the play-by-play, and this is going to determine who wins the NFC South. Big C, two great quarterbacks that have been MVP in this league. Their offenses are on fire, and their defenses play well, even though the Saints were stopped last week in L.A. Your thoughts on the Panthers going down into the Saints and winning, Big C? Your thoughts?
Both teams were stopped offensively last week. Fortunately enough, the Panthers had 2 non-offensive touchdowns to help them catapult them to a win over the Jets, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is a game that I look for the Saints to rebound against the Panthers. You know, this is a game truly for the division title, Charlton. The winner of this game should win the NFC South.
Yep.
And get their heads up for their home field advantage in the playoffs. But these are bitter rivals. And we know that New Orleans has a running game. That's the one thing that Carolina has been without.
Yep.
Greg Olsen went out of the game last week, with a suspected injury. So they may be without that tight end. He's been a safety net for Cam since coming back. So I give the advantage to New Orleans in this game, Charlton, and maybe they'll have their cornerback back. Yeah,
that's going to be a great game to watch, especially if you love offense. I look at the Rams 8-3. And they are at the Cardinals at 5-6, a disappointing season for the Cardinals. That game is Sunday at 4:25 kickoff on Fox Sports with Chris Myers, Dale Johnson, and Laurel Oakland with the play-by-play. I know we look at the Rams and how they played so much better this year. I know they were humbled when they went to Minnesota, but they got this swag back against the Saints last week in the Coliseum. Your thoughts on them going down into the desert and playing someone in the same division, Big C?
Charlton, I get more and more impressed by Jared Goff weekly. You know, Missouri's done a wonderful job to developing his young quarterback, but even more so this offensive line has opened gaping holes with Todd Gurley, the running back.
Yeah.
The defense has always been a stalwart with the Rams, Charlton. They have played extremely well, even under adversity of not having an offense with your team for the past 3 years.
Yep.
But now they're playing well with each other, offensively and defensively. When we look at the Cardinals, Charlton, they pulled out a miraculous victory last week, so they're on a one-game winning streak.
Yeah.
So these are 2 hot teams playing each other in the desert. But, I expect for the Rams not to take the foot off the throat this week. And, when you get into a contest of a ram and a bird,
that's funny, the ram and the bird. Well, I think that's very good nature watching, Big C. 2 more games, the Eagles 10-1. At the Seahawks 7-4, 2 more birds on the helmets. That game is Sunday at 8:25 kickoff on NBC Sports. The great Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, and Michelle Tafoya have the play-by-play. You look at the Eagles riding a 9-game winning streak into Seattle, one of the toughest places to win. But I look like Russell Wilson and Jimmy Graham, they've found some chemistry this week, Big C, and it looks like they're going to be back to their old ways, at least better offensively. But can that defense shut down the Eagles and clip their wings, Big C? Your thoughts? Yeah, yeah, they keep the good old boys out. Yeah. Yeah.
For the Eagles, it's been tenacious all year long. The Seahawks do not have a running game. We know that the Eagles have a two-headed juggernaut.
Yep.
And a guy and Blunt
yep.
in the backfield. So you got the hammer and you got the nail running for the Eagles. Carson Wentz, when you think about Carson Wentz, Charlton, everybody's giving him all these accolades and should be the league MVP.
Yeah.
He's only going to give you about 230, 240 yards a game in the air, Charlton.
Yeah.
Per game. So he's not lights out throwing the football. He's doing a yeoman's work. He's a good game manager, Charlton. He has a lot of tools around him to make his job easier.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson doesn't have that luxury, Charlton. He has no running back.
Nope.
He has decent receivers. He doesn't have great receivers. He's his top rusher. And he's his top pass. He's 85% of Seattle's offense, Charlton.
Yeah.
He has to find a way to diversify his offense if they expect to beat the Eagles. Russell Wilson cannot account for more than 70% of the team's offense, Charlton, if they expect to beat the Eagles.
That's a very good point. Big C, last game of the NFL, the Steelers 9-2 on Monday night, and the Bengals 5-6. That game is on Monday Night Football, 8:30 kickoff on ESPN. The great Mike Tirico, John Gruden, and Lisa Salters with the play-by-play. I love the Raiders. The Steelers showed a lot of moxie coming from behind to beat the Packers at home on the last-second field goal. But you also look at A.J. Green. He's the only really threat that has big numbers for Cincinnati. Your thoughts on the Steelers going into Cincinnati and getting another win on Monday night? Even if his will get kicked out. Yeah.
The problem with the Steelers is they play down to the competition.
Yeah.
When you look at their games, when teams are better, they play better.
Yeah.
But you look at the game they had against the Packers last week, where they played down to the Packers.
Yeah.
They just barely squeaked it out.
Yeah.
That's if they played the Chiefs in Kansas City and went in and dominated their game, Captain. Had the Steelers just gone out and dominated everybody. They've had some close calls.
Yeah.
They're a good team. They're a solid team. Mike Tomlin does a tremendous job, and he'll coach Charlton. But he has to find a way to keep his team from playing down to his talent
Yeah.
that they're playing. Marvin Lewis is coaching for his life. I mean, they've been calling for Marvin's head all year long.
Yeah.
And Andy Dalton hasn't played well. This team has not been the same team, Charlton, since Muhammad Sanu left for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. So we'll have to see what happens on college football and NFL football. I want to close out with the great Tiger Woods making his comeback after being away for over 10 months, having back surgery. I think he's tied for 5th place. He's a total 7 under par after the second round, Big C. Just your thoughts on what type of weekend. We know the TV people and the radio people are happy. What will we find out about Tiger Woods and how much people are into golf competing against the college football and also the NFL and the NBA going on again, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, we're talking how much people are in the golf. What have people been doing for the last days?
Yeah.
Yep. They've been talking Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is relevant just because of Tiger Woods' name.
Yeah.
But Tiger Woods, ironically, makes people's lives better.
Yep.
Because he brings us euphoria, the youthful euphoria, to everyone who thinks that they can go out and play a sport.
Yep. We all think we can play, huh?
Tiger Woods is around. I mean, here's the guy. He's not in a tournament that's meaningful, talking. It's not even a major tournament.
Right.
He's just playing down in the Bahamas, having fun.
Yeah.
All Tiger wants to do is be relevant, to play on the weekends. He's guaranteed to play on the weekends, talking. He's in 5th place.
Yep.
He's 7 under. 5 shots off the lead. But you think about it. Has not played competitive golf. This is the first time he has shot consecutive rounds in the 60s, Charlton, since the Wyndham tournament in 2015.
Wow.
Okay? 2 years ago. And so you think about that, just from Tiger's perspective, is that he's had 2 rounds in the 60s. And so he hasn't played mistake-proof golf, Charlton.
Right.
But he's been competitive. And that's what the world wants from Tiger Woods, is to be competitive.
Yeah.
Because that's the relevancy of golf.
Yep.
Tiger Woods has brought every golf aficionado Christmas
Yeah.
at the beginning of December, so.
I agree with you very much, C. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, after today, the University of Tennessee reached back into his past and hired still a former head coach that led them to a national championship with T. Martin, the quarterback, but still, the relevancy of having a coach at A&M. Everyone is talking about going out, recycling all these old coaches. You and I talked about it earlier in the program.
Yep.
Go out and get one of these young coordinators who is not partisan. T. Martin lives the Tennessee way. He understands the atmosphere and the culture of the UT. Give this young man a chance. People keep saying, well, he's not ready. Okay, the last 3 coaches that Tennessee has hired,
Yep.
what the hell are they ready?
Yeah, that's a good point, Big C. I want to be Jimbo Fisher's paycheck. I want $75 million. Speaking of $75 million, you may have a chance to get it every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence or domestic abuse or sexual assault. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911. No woman should ever have to go through that garbage on her own. And as we tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.